Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Ciprian, and as I told you before in the beginning of this evening, I want to talk a little about software architecture. So I am a software architect. I've done a couple of things. Uh, I did educate myself in software architecture, although I'm really not a believer in certifications and such, but I do believe in learning. So what Paulio was saying is I totally believe in, and I do believe it has to start from inside. And so I got myself some training from these guys for the Software Engineering Institute. I've also been working for a lot. I've been working since faculty, so now I have well, nearing on 13 years of experience. I've done development in C, in Java, in JavaScript, working in Agile, doing DevOps, software architecture, technical management, technical coaching. So I've tried to pretty much cover all bases, try to go wide on the domain on software engineering. And quite recently, I've also moved full-time to my consultancy company here. It's called Prog Squad. So I work as a technical coach there. And I'm also the CTO. So we're doing training, coaching, consultancy, these kinds of things all around technology and management and soft skills. So mainly in IT, so companies doing IT. And in this capacity, I've gotten to meet a lot of different kinds of companies, large and small, doing various kinds of products, local to Romania, where I'm from, and international, big multinational subsidiaries based in Romania or working with their subsidiaries in other countries. So I've seen quite a lot of stuff, and I like, and maybe that's also due to my affinity to software architecture, I like to find patterns and trends in all of these things that I experience in all of these companies and all of these people that I meet. So the talk today will be about, obviously, software architecture, but how does that fit in an Agile universe? Because you see in Agile and the Agile team, you only see product owner, sometimes they're called product managers. You see a team member and a Scrum Master. So where did everyone else go? Right? What happened to them? I mean, there was a lot of people here saying they're project managers in this room. Does that mean they're not Agile? What's going on with these things? So maybe one way to sum this up is that I believe we moved too fast to this Agile approach and forgot to find a change for all of the roles that we already had, and that had a pretty good reason for existing. I mean, we don't have project managers just because someone thought that someday, well, that'd be nice if I was called project manager. They have a reason. They have a reason for being there. The software architect as well, the business analyst as well. All of those roles that we hate, all of those hierarchies that were created before, they had a purpose. Okay, Agile maybe has another way of approaching things, but doesn't mean that all of those responsibilities have gone. And I think these roles are sort of the elephant in the room whenever we talk about Agile. So at any Agile tour I attended, there were always project managers, business analysts, developers, and many other roles. But nobody was talking about those roles. We only talk about the Agile team and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to bust a little that myth and show you with one role, with a software architect role, what is the danger of not including it in the day-to-day. Maybe you want to change its name or include it in the Agile team or whatnot, but the responsibilities need to be there. And to do that, I'm just going to start from where we began, the waterfall model. So I've been working in software before Agile actually became cool. Right, so I don't know how many of you have been working before Agile. Great. I feel very not lonely right now. So you remember those times then when these guys started coming in with the Agile and all the flat structure and all the power to the people, empower the teams, they do everything. I know I was against it, so I was against it for quite a while. Then I started to catch on to it, but there's still a lot of things to fix about it, but I think generally it's a good idea. But mostly at an operational level. We still have to include all of the other roles into what we consider Agile to actually make this scalable. So I don't believe in the scaled Agile where scaling Agile just means tribes and all kinds of strange structures or not. It just means add the responsibilities and the skills required to do tactical and strategical work. Because otherwise you won't be able to do anything else than operational work. So, the biggest fear that, I don't know, at least I had, maybe you can relate, when working in this model was, when the client came and changed the project scope. You know, we've been working hard on that thing for months, just this close to delivering it, and all of a sudden something changed and we had to go start all over again. And that repeated and repeated all over again until, you know, after twice the time of the project allotted to the project was finished, we finally put something in production, not because there wasn't more change, but simply because, you know, it was just getting late. It was about time to get something done there. So that was the biggest fears, and I think Agile responded to that. So, you know, someone said at some point, let's make this agile, you know, let's be agile, respond to this change in a more efficient fashion. So we have agile software development, and we do everything in loops. We get feedback, we deliver rapidly. But in my opinion, that didn't really quite solve the problem. I think this agile was, at least in the companies I've worked and I've seen so far, it's sort of seen more like this. You know, it's a reason to extend the deadlines. You know, it's no problem. You don't need to get it in this release. You can always get it in the next one. We do releases every 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. It's fine. On the other hand, the customers, they started picking up on this thing. So, okay, you're telling me you can deliver in 2 weeks now, right? So how about you deliver all of that stuff that I wanted next week? You know? Of course, that doesn't work, and you end up in something like this. You know, in every sprint planning, meaning everything is urgent. Everything needs to be done this sprint. Right? And obviously, once you don't actually have a priority list, you don't start from somewhere, and you admit that not everything can be done and that we're actually working at this in an evolutionary fashion, you simply go back to that. You know, and I've seen this happen over and over again. So we're not agile, we're not responding to change. Let's do this agile thing. So we can push stuff to the next release, but the customer now asks for more things every release. So we can't really prioritize, and we end up doing the same thing all over again. So in all of this, you know, there is a great disturbance in the force here in Agile, the way I see it. And this is because, you know, Agile has more or less gotten over the operational stage. So I think it's pretty efficient at an operational level. We can end up with stable velocity teams producing things predictably, just not value necessarily. Because value is at a business level, and with Agile, we're at an operational level. And I think that the most important thing as a next step for Agile is to bring balance into the mix. We've focused a lot on the operational, we've made it very efficient, but considering the way of flow from Lean, we've been working at one constraint, but now the bottleneck is not in the operational level anymore. Okay, it's in the business level. So no matter how much we improve the operational Agile level, we're just going to stay just as slow as before. Okay, we need something else. We need to power this up somehow. So I really like this quote here. I've been looking for it for a while. A good quote on balance. And you know the yin and yang from the Oriental culture. So there's yin and yang, but the important thing is balance there between yin and yang, between business and technical, between strategy, technical, and operational. And when there's no balance, you know, there's just comedy. It's just coffee room, having fun of all of the things that have happened lately. And I think the main thing, I mean, the imbalance comes from having everything customer-centric, or one of the points of the imbalance comes from customer centricity. So we've been working a lot on focusing on the customer, how much we can adapt to what the customer asks. Anything the customer changes, we can adapt and we can deliver. Okay, that's great. But in a partnership, in building a software, there's not only the customer that brings input and that has expectations. He's not the only stakeholder in that project. There's always us and all of the roles from inside the company. So I think in the end, this turns up as a problem of how to balance between the multiple identities, the multiple people and personalities and requests and stakes and demands that all of these people have from the project. And that's where software architecture comes in. Now, software architecture, in a nutshell, you could say is the vehicle for establishing a clear view of the project by all its stakeholders, but that is centered on something else. It's centered on quality. If you've taken anything from the talks from all this day and maybe last week in Kaunas as well, is that in Agile, we say quality is a first-class citizen, okay? Quality is not negotiable. Features are, quality isn't. So maybe it's not worth doing all of the waterfall planning for the features because those will change, but we all admit that quality shouldn't. If anything, should improve. So it is worth planning for quality. It may not be worth planning for features, but it's worth planning for quality. And that's what this discipline of software architecture is defining quality and a plan for achieving that quality. All right? And of course, quality is this meta word. Anyone can understand anything out of quality. The most difficult thing is to define it. So the important thing is to define what that quality is for your project. So what your customer sees as quality, what your product owner sees as quality, what your Scrum team sees as quality, what your management team, yes, they exist. They have expectations and qualities that they want from the project. What is their expectation? What are the suppliers' expectations? Yes, those still exist, and supplier management is still a very valid job and branch of work. Any project has its suppliers. Even if it's open source projects, you still have those, and those are your suppliers, and they have expectations on quality, or they have declarations of their own quality. And your end users, of course, not only the customer, but the actual person that will be using the software day to day. They have expectations on that quality. And the discipline of software architecture is about aligning all of these people here, all of these roles, on this quality-centric approach. Okay. Talk to me, every one of these guys, talk to me, not about features. Features we'll figure out, okay? You have some ideas today, tomorrow they will change. After you see it, you want something else, doesn't really matter. But quality, it doesn't really change that much. You know, it has this quality of being transient across years. The formulation or the expectations on quality, they change very rarely across a project's lifetime. So if we get people aligned on this and get all the talk on the project aligned on this, then we have something that everyone can relate to and work together on instead of just throwing the cat around from one to the other, like we saw in the previous pictures. So, of course, there's a lot behind software architecture and the software architect role. It's a whole discipline, so I encourage you, if you want some pointers of where to start, to seek me out here in the whole room or afterwards. But I strongly encourage you to look at this discipline. It may be the most important role to add first in this equation of agility, because it is sort of the bridge between the technical world and the business world. It was from the beginning. So it comes naturally as a layer on top of the operational to secure the tactical and then start involving the business people. So thank you. If you have any questions right now. Questions? Yes? No? Maybe? How can PO help the team make system architecture evolutionary? So, first of all, I always feel like saying that the product owner is not a person. The product owner is a team. Okay, it's a product ownership team. It's never one person. Okay, one person couldn't possibly fit in their head an entire product. It's just too big. In the product ownership team, normally is where in Agile I would situate the software architect. The software architect should be part of the product ownership team. It should be part of those couple of guys who think about what this project means, what value it brings, what to start first, what to think about later. So in a sense, the PO can help the team by understanding that his role is not doable just by himself. He needs assistants. He needs other roles to help him in doing that. And software architect is one of them. The business analyst is another one. I wouldn't put the project manager here. I think that's a totally different thing, but in a different talk. But I do think the software architect should be part of this team. And if you're thinking about the product owner as the business persons, how can business help make system architecturally evolutionary, is by being able to give a concrete definition of what quality means for them. Okay? In Software Engineering Institute methodology for architecture, that is materialized in what is called quality attribute scenarios. So you actually get these guys in a room, it's a workshop, and you have them put in measurable scenarios what qualities they expect from a system: availability, maintainability, testability, usability, many utilities, right? But in concrete form, you know. So what does performance mean to you? What is good enough performance for this system that you want? With numbers, with figures, right? So that's how they can help. They can at least attend these workshops that a software architect would definitely do, and provide the necessary information to build this software architecture. All right. Were there any other questions? System architecture always has constraints and limitations. How to avoid this specific limitation? So basically, in system architecture, I mean, we could go into the large talk about system architecture and enterprise architecture and software architecture. There's a kind of multiple words there. But the point of architecture is precisely to ensure that these limitations will not have a negative effect in the future. Okay? That's why you're doing software architecture, and not just leaving it, you know, we know you have that constraint, but we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. It doesn't work like that with software. By the time you get to that bridge, there's way too much code and commitment into that thing for anyone to be able to do anything about it. So that's why you think about this up front, okay? You think about what constraints you have, what limitations you have, and how you will be able to build this project without that particular limitation having a strong effect on your project, or without having a strong effect on the qualities of your project. Right? Customer and end user is not the same. Well, think about it like this. The guy that signs the contract is rarely the guy who actually operates the software, right? Okay? The guy you're talking to who gives you the specifications is rarely the guy that will sit in front of the computer and use your software, at least in my experience, all right? So a company wants some software for its users, but it's not the users that you will be talking to directly necessarily to figure out what the application wants. You usually talk to the guy who contracts you, okay? We want the software, can you build it for us? Great, we want our users to be able to do this and that, but you talk to this company, not to the actual end user. So that's why it's separate entities, and you really need to be considered separately. Because of course, not always your customer will know exactly what the end user expects. So they need to be taken into consideration. There's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, UX engineers do tests on real end users to see how the interfaces are used. You can do interviews, you can do a lot of things, but it's important to include them because they are the people who will eventually be using your application.
All right, we will try and get the answers to the remaining questions online because we're running out of time, but thanks a lot. Please share your feedback on the presentation now.
Thank you.